Hey guys, welcome back to part 2 of the complete menu, A Legend of Zelda Master Quest. We are now doing a bit more cleanup now that we have a couple more items. With the whistle we can get a couple more heart containers. The first one we can get is in the desert. All we gotta do is play the whistle here and it'll open up a staircase. And do not take the potion. If this is the first time we're coming across one of these rooms, I believe, do not take the potion, always take the heart container, because you can buy potions in other shops. And now, as a bit of a prep, we should go get the arrows. They're near the starting point in this shop. If there are multiple shops, I decided to pick this one. If you consult a full-on map, you might see other opportunities to get arrows, but this is near to the start, so I think it might be worth your time. Getting the arrows gets us ready for the bow and arrow set that we're going to get later. But the bow is an item in a dungeon, whereas the arrows need to be purchased. You buy them once and you can use them forever. And now we get an upgrade on our sword. We get to climb all the way up to the top of Hyrule, and we get the, I believe it's called the white sword. Yeah, you need 5 heart containers to pick this one up, and I recommend getting this as soon as you get 5. I got the extra heart container to make the journey more tolerable. But this does double your attack power, and it's definitely worth getting as soon as possible, because the magical sword, which is in the next row in the item checklist, is double that of the white sword in terms of power, but we won't get it until we have 12 heart containers. So here's the layout of Dungeon 3. It's actually pretty simple. To get in, you gotta enter this lake and use the whistle to dry up the lake and get the water to evaporate. I'm trying to kill this guy so it doesn't give me any trouble. And it's in a L shape, keeping up with the lettering thematic. So we've entered dungeons A, E, and L. And off screen, while recording in between parts, I had a look at the names of some of these enemies. These are called hold on. These are called the Goria, and they look ridiculously different as what the NES sprites are. They look like little badgers, but the sprites look exactly like moblins, and these little things are called ropes. I mean, I don't know why they just don't call them snakes, but alright, there you go. And there's a good instance of the boomerang stopping them in their tracks, because when these things see you, when the ropes see you, they make a beeline straight towards you. Nice little exploit that maybe you could find out here, or at least I did, was if you're attacking, you have a moment of invulnerability, and that can save you from a lot of enemies, including dark nuts. So even if you swing your sword and nothing happens, that's still, you will be immune to touch damage, I think is the main point. Not to everything. These orbs that these statues are shooting at you will not, will still harm you, but you'll be immune to touch damage from these Gorias. Gorias? Yeah, Gorias. We got Starfers with their little weird shuffle. And they got, I want to say they got some glow sticks going on over here. Nice little dance. And here we go, we have the map of the dungeon. It is probably the shortest dungeon. I believe, looking at the timestamp here, it takes me about, with deaths edited out, it takes me about 5 or 6 minutes. Now this, I want to say this is a moblin. This is what you get the meat for, and I think that's one of the steps I missed in part 1. You should preemptively buy the meat before Dungeon 3. It is pretty much a block. You can't go to the rest of the dungeon without putting that meat as your B button item, and just it looks like you're smacking him over the head with it and then they both vanish. I feel like that's more exciting than giving it to him to eat. But yeah, that's how you get past that guy. And here we go, we just got the magical boomerang. So this is the item for this dungeon. This doubles our range, And that's about it. It doesn't double the power, but it's pretty handy too, because you'd have to get pretty close up to an enemy if you wanted to hit it with a boomerang. Here you could just snipe it from across the room. Now, in terms of the dungeon layout, you go straight up for most of the optional items. And I believe here's our boss, 3 Dodongos. Now this is probably going to be the hardest Dodongo fight because we don't have access to our bomb upgrades. But then again, it all depends on what order you do the dungeons in. Because this game, as everyone knows, is expressively non-linear. I'm doing these dungeons in numerical order because it makes making the guide easier. So I can look back at the last dungeon I did and, oh yeah, okay, so I've done dungeon 3, that means I've done 1 and 2 before this, not 7 and 5, for instance, as a random, in a random order. So that's just for my sake, but you can tackle these dungeons in any order. And given that you get an item that will help you get a heart container, you might be in a relatively good state, no matter which item you get first. Now, I believe I ran out of bombs and died, and I cut back and I got some more bombs, because the Dodongo takes 2 bombs in the mouth to kill, but you can attempt to bomb it from the side, and then while it's stunned, use your sword. But if you get it in the mouth, that is 2 bombs and it will die. And right now Link having 8 bombs is a bit of a crutch, like it's a bit close. I only am allowed 2 misses with that, and that's with a full bomb pack. Now here we got Wall Masters, which I quickly killed. You can kill Wall Masters, I'm not sure if you can in other Zelda games. But if you pick up the stopwatch, all activity in the room halts, and this is one of those rooms where you've got to kill everything in order to progress. So I picked up the stopwatch halfway through the amount of Wall Masters, and it kind of stopped the rest of them coming out of the wall, so I had to exit and enter the room again. Now, entering this staircase leads to that tiny little 2-room part in the top left. Now I say all of these dungeons are modeled after a ladder, but I'm not sure what that little nub in the top left is. Could be a dot above an eye, but maybe just done like that. Or maybe they ran out of space in terms of the dungeon height, so they translated the last 2 rooms over. And if you want to think about it, the last boss of this dungeon is a bunch of Goroyas, which is a bit easier than the Dodongos, but you do have to defeat both the Dodongos and the Goroyas in order to open the doors and get to the Triforce. So there we go, that's Dungeon 3. Yeah, about 4 minutes, looking at the timestamp here. And we're very close to getting about half the items in the game, but not about half the heart containers in the game. Something that could have been gotten before Dungeon 1 was the power bracelet. All you got to do is touch that statue. You got to touch the 4th one from the left on the top, or the 5th one on the left from the top, and it gets that knight to start acting crazy. And with the power bracelet you can push rocks, and I think that's it. Oh, and you can push this graveyard stone, so we're going to get a heart container here. So you want to enter the top left portion of the graveyard and push that stone up, and there you go, another heart container. Now there are 16 heart containers in the game, 2 rows of 8 that you'll see on your life display, and you start off with 3, which means there are 13 heart containers to get. There are 5 optional ones, and 8 in the dungeon. You get 1 for clearing a dungeon every time. The boss will drop 1, but the heart dungeon might be halfway through it. Heart dungeon. The heart container might be halfway through a dungeon. Now the next optional heart container is near Death Mountain, or at least where Death Mountain used to be in the original quest. You gotta kill all these centaurs. and play the whistle. Play the whistle here, and this forms another staircase where you can get another heart container. A nice little trivia: the whistle plays the first couple of notes of the whistle in Mario 3. They are the same, and this later gets translated into Ocarina of Time as the intro little jingle. So we're going into Dungeon 4. Dungeon 4 is, I would say, the hardest and also the easiest, because there is a recovery fairy right up the stairs there. You do have to travel the screen 4 times to get to it, but that does make it easy because every time you die in this dungeon you get taken to the start. You can quickly exit and recover all your health and attempt a dungeon again. It is a bit tedious in that sense, but the dungeon itself is actually pretty difficult, and this dungeon, which we'll see later on, is in the shape of a Z, in the shape of a D, actually. And what's the treasure here? Oh, we got 2 treasures this time. We got the raft, and we have... I'm not sure what it's called. I call it the Bible because it's a book with a cross on it, but not exactly sure what the in-game name is. But there was a hint of Christianity in this game. There you can see there's a cross on Link's shield, so there was like attempts to make a religion in this universe, but I think after this game it was kind of phased out. I don't think you ever see references to Christianity again. And I mean, given the amount of complaints there would be, I mean, this offends my religion and blah blah blah. Might have been a good thing. Here we have a new enemy, the Pole's Voice. Now this looks incredibly graphic, so maybe something straight out of D&D when you look at the official artwork, but it looks like a little mouse thing right now. But it's apparently a ghost, and the easiest way to kill it is with the bow and arrow, but we don't have that, so poking it with the sword a couple of times should do the trick. It just takes longer, but an arrow one-shots it. And here we have different colored dark nuts, and this is a trend you're going to be seeing for most of the game. When an enemy is colored blue, it's usually stronger, and when it's orange, it's a weaker variant. And see, the bomb did save my hide there a couple of times. I just wasn't winning the fight well, so I just decided to... I had a lot of bombs and I didn't see any opportunities to use them, so I just decided to lay them as little traps. And that could be a handy little hint sometimes. Now, we already got the compass. Now, here's an instance of bubbles, and luckily they did put red and blue in the same room, so while this isn't overly hard, there's only 2 dark nuts in here. The red ones are going to remove your ability to swing your sword. So it might be easier just to skip it automatically. That is a technique you might want to use in Legend of Zelda NES, just to skip rooms that don't have anything. If the enemies don't drop keys or require the door to open, then it might be worth just skipping it entirely. Now that we've upgraded ourselves with the white sword, Aquamentus is pretty much easy enough to kill. Just 3 white sword attacks and you're good. And here I am getting very paranoid because I'm very much enjoying the sword beam ability and I don't want to lose it. But this is the strategy I employ. I just like to fire sword beams from the door, and then once I get hit I just go full ham. Mostly out of rage. These enemies do have a lot of touch damage. And those mummies found out they're called Gyptos. And the globs that split into two, they're called Zols. And there's really freaking graphic in the official artwork. Too bad that couldn't be conveyed properly on NES technology. Now, we just picked up the Bible. I'm going to be calling it the Bible. What that does is it changes the rod's ability, which we'll be getting later. The rod pretty much is your long-range projectile for the game. It adds an extra fire effect to the rod. So picking up the Bible right now does nothing. That's the only effect it has. And from what I've been hearing, that actually nerfs the rod's power. Because I believe maybe the energy wave that shoots out of the rod takes the same properties as the fire, which is inherently weaker than the initial rod's power. So by adding the Bible, you are nerfing the rod, but it is a 100% guide, so we're going to be picking it up anyway. And to be honest, you won't be using it too much if you have the sword beam ready, especially on your level 3 sword. Another tactic I like to employ in Dark Knights is just to go and lose my mind here. I just swing in all 4 directions and hope I hit. I believe it got a couple chuckles out of Pierre when we were doing this LP. Now I believe going up was the wrong way to go in that point, so I have edited out to heading here. We'll see what happens. It's been a while since I've edited this footage. Here we go. Yeah, I wanted to get the bomb upgrade. It's not something that's necessary in the original quest because you don't go up to Dongos as much. That's pretty much why you'd want a bomb upgrade. But having, at this point in the game, an extra 4 bombs, you'd be surprised. It increases the utility because you can lay them out as traps more, and you can get through more walls. I've had a couple of times in the main campaign where I've needed to bomb a wall to get through a later part of the dungeon. I just don't have enough bombs because you gotta hope that they come out as enemy drops. Some enemies are predetermined to drop bombs when you kill all of them in a room, but there's few and far in between. So you can upgrade your bomb pouch twice. It's 100 rupees every time. If you upgrade it a second time, you can carry 16, and that's pretty much double your original capacity. Now I'm starting to lose my mind with this last one here. So while it's completely optional to upgrade your bomb pouch, I do it in this playthrough just because it makes the game easier. Here we have some more Zols. They look so squishy here, but they're just completely, like in the official artwork, they're just dripping with mucus, and they have like these little yellow eyes, and they just look all demonic and stuff. Kind of like a gelatinous ooze in D&D. But here they just look all blobby and cute. I think that might be there's a little bit of a charm to the cute enemies, but the actual message they're trying to convey is that this is not a kid's adventure. This is a fight against the forces of evil, and everything demonic that ever crawled out of the hell is coming to get you. And here it is all cutesy and stuff. Look at this little mouse thing. I was gonna poke it with a stick. Oh, and it died. I wouldn't be surprised if these bats these keys look extremely creepy. But yeah, it's a different feel when you look at concept art for this game. But I mean, Link doesn't look different. He still looks like a kid. It isn't a kid's adventure, but it is a kid doing the adventure. These rooms, once you push the block, you get access to 3 out of the 4 pathways, so you can enter and exit the room multiple times to reset the block so you can enter the room that you were blocked off from, in case that's the way you need to go. So I got blocked off from the top. If I enter, the central square is back in the middle and I can push it to the right and then enter the top pathway. So that's not exactly one and done. While the game says it boasts puzzles, there's not really much in terms of thinking. It's more you just gotta try everything on anything and then hope it works. That's pretty much what I found. Because pushing a block's not really a puzzle. Deciding which direction is the right way to push it in is mostly just trial and error. Sudoku, this ain't. Push blocks, this ain't. And there's a lot more moats of water in the second quest, and until you get the step ladder, you ain't crossing there, so I decided to leave that key behind. The step ladder is an item that helps you cross against one square of water. Here we go, the boss with the dongos, and it was nice enough to drop a fairy. But having 4 statues going crazy makes it a really hard fight. Because whenever you get hit by one of these things, it pushes you around, it messes up your focus, and when positioning is important, where in this case, you need to be positioned perfectly in order to hit a blue dark nut, and you get smacked by the orb. Yeah, that's gonna fuck you up, and I believe I get hit here and lose my mind and employ my famous swing in a circle strategy. But for now I'm playing it safe. Alright, I've gotten hit, time to go nuts. Oh no? No, I'm still playing it safe. Here we go. I mean, I got lucky and a fairy dropped. But I am playing this on the Wii U Virtual Console, which means I'm running with the D-pad. And the D-pad does stick a little and it does hinder the movement. And here we go, the shape of a dungeon's in a D. Contrary to what you might think, you can actually enter the little black rooms in some of the dungeons if there's a room there in the first place. So, say you want to get from underneath the black square to above it, you can. If the dungeon is programmed to have rooms there, then you can just head straight up instead of going around it. I believe this is the room where I was denied my key, and I think I'm just trying to clear this back so I can get to the next room up top. Or I believe I fell for the same trick twice. Which, I mean, is pretty standard. I actually did not notice that before. In the inventory screen, you actually show if you have the map and compass. So that's nice. I don't want to pay. It might always be good to have 50 plus rupees when you enter certain dungeons. The first instance where this happens is Dungeon 4. You gotta pay to get past. And it is preferable to lose rupees as opposed to losing a heart container. Never pay a heart container. Those cheap little bastards, they ain't getting my life. If they say your money or your life, you say, yeah, my money, please. Because once you lose a heart container, you can't get it back. You can't go back to the spot where you picked it up in the overworld or in the dungeon and get it again. It is gone. And here we have the boss of the dungeon. Just a quick search on who that is. Dig Dogger. I might have said that four-clawed monster was Dig Dogger, but that was actually Manhandler, so that might have been an error on my part, so I might have to fix that in editing. But this is Dig Dogger. The way to defeat this, and we have fought him before, is to play the flute, and then it splits into 3 mini Dig Doggers, and then you just poke them with the sword 3 times, and they go down. Probably more, given that we have a weaker sword to begin with. But they do hurt, and these orbs aren't making it any more helpful, because they keep pushing me back and forward into where I don't want to go. Come on, Link. There we go. Now, when you pick up a heart container, you do gain an extra heart. So it's kind of like it fills your capacity, but it remembers how much you are missing. So it adds an extra heart, but it also fills up an extra heart. So that's a kind of mini heal when you pick up a heart container. Now, I did skip the Triforce because the next 3 rooms, or 2 rooms, have the last item. And there was an invisible wall that you gotta go past the room, and that's, I think, the first out of 2 times, I want to say, that happens, where you gotta ignore the Triforce. Usually the Triforce doesn't have anything beyond it, even in Master Quest. But they do play that little trick on you, and you gotta get to this room here and above. But there, I poked through one Dark Nut to hit the other, and because I was using my sword, I was mitigated some touch damage. That's always nice. Especially on things that do a lot of damage. And, oh, here we go. See, I'm glad I have 12 bombs here. This makes this fight so much easier. And this is optional. But now I have 6 bombs I need, and I have to use effect properly, and I have 12 attempts to use them. So that makes this a very comfortable fight. So I only need a 50% fail rate to win. And in fact, I think I do this flawlessly, but I'm gonna put my foot in my mouth in a second here. We'll see with the last bomb here. Yep. So much for that flawless one. Come on, Dindongo, come my way. It is hard because you got to be in line with the Dindongo, and the movement is a bit delayed. When you turn, you don't turn the second you press the left or right button. Oh, and here's a who's who of enemies. Oh, this is great. We got Dark Nuts, we got Pole's Voices, and we got Corridors, which severely limit the movement, but it does limit their movement. And I got lucky enough to pick up the first enemy I killed picked me up a stopwatch. And when you pick up a stopwatch, you are actually invulnerable to touch damage. I used that to exploit it to get past that orange Dark Nut that was blocking the passage. So it stops all enemies. They do still have their weaknesses. See, I just walked through that blue Dark Nut. So I still have to hit a Dark Nut from behind and all the other little tips and tricks, but they do not hurt me anymore and they don't move, which makes them incredibly easy. And it does halt any attacks they might have going. And I believe we're getting the last treasure in this dungeon, 2, so we're getting the raft here. Now the raft is a upgraded stepladder in a sense, that allows you to cross larger bodies of water more than just one tile. The stepladder only lets you do one tile, but the raft lets you go longer, but it is over predetermined pathways. So we'll be seeing a use in the next part on how that's done, because the raft gives you access to more heart containers. And now an easy backtrack back to the Triforce, because we cleared out all the enemies, and enemies stay dead for a couple of rooms. Maybe the enemies near the beginning have respawned by this point, but it makes backtracking a little easier. If you clear out a room, it stays empty for a couple of rooms, and until you get further away from it, there is no time limit. And so we got the 4th Triforce shard. And with that, we're pretty much halfway through the game. And we have a lot of the items at this point. And I want to say, yep, we have half the heart containers. So with that, I'll see you guys for part 3. See ya.